Hello, welcome to the Opinionistas podcast. I'm your host, John Malone, and in today's episode, I've brought on a guest from Florida, but currently in New York City, Elliot Carlisle.
Hi.
So, Elliot, tell me about what you do.
Well, in a nutshell, I am a creative director and a consulting director. I advise and create on all things, primarily in fashion and entertainment, but fashion has been my dominant career for the past almost going on 15 years. It's been a wonderful trajectory. I started out in public relations and events doing runway shows, and then I moved into marketing and creative direction, and now I consult. And so I've been able to bring all of my skills together in sort of a hybrid format to be able to consult on strategy and representation and development. And I do also work in jewelry on the diversity, equity, and inclusion side.
Wow, great.
Thank you.
And welcome. And what exactly got you into fashion and creative consulting?
Actually, fashion from the beginning came very random to me. My beginnings was in music. I started out as a show choir kid all my years of elementary school and middle school and high school. And then I graduated and, of course, went on to college with a full music scholarship. But then my second year, I decided to drop out because I no longer wanted to do music. I don't know why, because I'm still very connected to music today, and it's still very much a part of who I am. But it's not a path that I saw myself going on professionally. And that was an interesting conflict I had at the time because I had never explored anything else. But I had a professor in college when I had to take intro to business who had me do a fashion centric project because she gave us something that we would have to really dig into and research that we had no familiarity with. And so I did that, and it was a very good project. And I remember her saying to me, I think there's something that you connect with in fashion, and I think that is very organic for you. If you've never put yourself in a position to explore it, you should. And so that conversation inspired me to kind of pursue this just as an exploration and to find out where my curiosity would lead me. And that was the summertime, and I had seen people start talking. This was MySpace days, and people started talking about Fashion Week, and I had decided to book a ticket and just come up here and see what it's all about. And that experience, of course, I didn't get into anything. I knew nobody. I didn't have any connections or ways to access anything, but I did go to the tents and I did ask some questions because there were people there that looked like they were important. And I asked some questions to find out how I could come back as a volunteer. And they actually gave me that information. I came back the next season and volunteered. And then I was hired to be a production captain and oversee the volunteer production team. And we went from there. And from that experience at the Fashion Week tents to building my own PR firm to then going back to school and getting my BFA in fashion marketing and retail management some 8 years later. And then from there going on to be Gladys Knight's creative director, and then moving to New York to work as Fern Malice's brand manager, who is the former executive director of the Council of Fashion Designers of America, known as the CFDA. And then in the pandemic, as everyone was borrowing from that buzzword, the momentum in that word at the time was to pivot. And I decided to make a shift for myself and start consulting full time. And so now I run a program called CFDA Connects, which is a program to amplify fashion across America through the connection of regional fashion organizations, which produce regional fashion weeks across America. And so right now I get to work with 12 of those market leaders who are a part of the program. And I also work in jewelry as well on the DEI side and program strategy for Black and Brown creatives, or for those who have felt misrepresented or underrepresented or underserved.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
so
quite a career.
it's a lot, but it's all flowed. It really has been just a consistent flow. I consider myself a multi hyphenate, but very, very, very humbled to have had the career that I've had, and still, exploring. Every day is a different day, and I don't necessarily know where I'll be in the next 5 to 10 years, but I do intend to still be working from the way that I get to impact people. And I love program strategy. I love building platforms to help people who have felt misrepresented, who have felt unseen and unheard, to be able to have a voice and to have a presence. That's very important to me. So I love fashion more so for the people than the clothes.
Oh yes,
Mhm.
lovely. And well, what do you what you do? What do you like about doing it?
I like the fact that I can actually pinpoint growth very easily. I can look at the transformation that takes place in the lives of people. I look at transformation that takes place in the structures of organizations. Whether I'm doing program strategy or whether I'm doing peopleality consulting, I guess you could say. People, environment building, community building, culture. I like the fact that you get to see easily the results that come from doing this kind of work. This is a different kind of work because it deals with people. Although the people are the producers of these products and these having these gifts and talents, abilities that we all buy and engage through retail, but being able to work with the creatives who are behind that is fulfilling in a different way, because you can look at the change that you see in their lives, the change that you see in their businesses, and see the effect of your influence. And so it's very rewarding in that way.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And what have been the ups and downs of it?
Ooh, ups and downs. I would say for me, I talk about this a lot. A personal down has been figuring out, being in the entrepreneur route and taking that route and venturing into things that are new. Sometimes you don't do the research that you need to do about what you're going into. And so one of the things I used to do a disservice to myself with was not pricing my services correctly. And so that's been a downer when you look back and see where you should have been getting paid this, but you were getting paid that. So everything is a learning lesson, but that's been something. But then also, I think there are a lot of barriers that often take place in the kind of work that I do that are more intrinsic, that are more psychological, that are more mental than anything. And one person can't create change on their own. When it comes to an organization, it takes the collective agreement of a group. And I think that many times in what I do, it takes time for people to be on the same page when it comes to shift, change, and growth. And so those are often challenges that you face in doing what I do.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And do you do your work abroad across the globe, or do you just work from wherever you are right now?
I do work remotely, so I don't necessarily do a lot when it comes to the international sphere, but I have spoken on a few international platforms, but more so virtually. And of course, the pandemic gave the ability to do that. But as far as traveling internationally and being, physically present and engaging, hands-on, being in rooms with and sitting at tables on an international scale, I haven't necessarily done that yet, but that is actually something I'm looking forward to doing in the near future. I do have some aspects and some new prospects that are looking like I'm going to be able to have that opportunity with the way that these projects pan out. So I am excited about it.
Right.
Hmm.
And is there any fashion trends that you want to get started or promote to the whole world?
Not necessarily for me. My trend is do you. My trend is be authentic to yourself. And I really feel that even when it comes to seasonal wear and when you see a lot of the trends that rise and fall, because everything is cyclical, everything is cyclical, it comes back around. I think that when you are a person who wants to follow those waves, it can become very difficult many times, because you're always having to shift and change based on what the time is calling for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are a person who wants to represent or be that at the time, just because the time may be calling for that. And so I find, to me, I tell people, when it comes to style, just be an individual, be yourself, express yourself, and show up for yourself in a way that makes you feel good. And if you're happy and you smile when you look in the mirror, then that's what matters. For me, I love to dress. I do like to look nice, but I like to look nice for me. I don't dress for people. I look in the mirror and I smile at what I put on. I like the way I feel when I walk walk down the street. I like the way that I feel when I get compliments from people, but it doesn't necessarily validate me. It is encouraging, but I was validated when I put the look on because I dress for me. And I encourage everyone to do that for themselves.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
How much time do you often spend on the internet?
That's not a fair question. And what I do, I spend almost 24 hours a day on the internet, I have to say, only because I work remotely again. So I spend hours and hours on Zoom. I spend hours and hours on email. So it just kind of rolls with my day. I can be brushing my teeth and checking email. I can be in the shower. I've even had to be in showers on conference calls, never on Zoom. But I have to just make it work whenever I can. And what I do, it doesn't ever really turn off. I love that what I do and who I am, it flows together. I do believe that I have connectivity to what I do because it is so rooted in my purpose. And I just believe that for myself. So I never need a break from it. Yes, just in my own humanness, sometimes you need to recharge and you need to rest. But I love that I don't ever need a break from what I do. I can do it every day. I can do it 24/7 because it matters to me and it is my heartbeat.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And have you done anything this week in terms of being like a creative consultant or working in fashion?
I have. I'm actually working. I consulted with a jewelry brand yesterday that's out of Singapore that's coming here to do an activation in the fall. And I was able to have a consultation with them on what it is that they should do as far as their activation here in the U.S. They don't have a big presence in the U.S. and they want to sort of kick off that presence or build that presence from New York. And so I'm talking with them about an activation and a sort of a meet and greet event that they can do here. And we'll make it a cultural experience as well. But really excited about that. And many people don't know this about me. I'll leak this on this podcast. I have a very keen eye for photography, and I'm actually a pretty good shooter. And I just recently shot an editorial for a friend. It was just a side project, a personal project, but the project came out very lovely. And we may be pitching that for a publication. And I say that as a humble brag, but it's a very lovely project.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
great. What is something everyone's always surprised to learn about you?
Ooh. Something interesting. People don't know that I started my career as a college dropout rather. That's something that I didn't even necessarily realize. And I would tell my story for a long time, but it wasn't until I spoke one day. I believe I was in South Carolina or North Carolina, and I was speaking, and someone came up and responded to my presentation and said, "Oh, it was very encouraging to see you make it to where you made it, being that you dropped out of college. I was a college dropout too." And when they said that, that's when it hit me for the first time. Oh, I've actually never told my story like that. I never have acknowledged that I was a dropout. I just said I quit school. But, in essence, that gives me a different way to connect if I language it that way. And it really blessed me that person shared that with me. So I think that was a surprise to a lot of people. It still is when I share that. But then also the fact that I've never been on a job interview in my career. Well, I had never been, I should say that way. I had never been on a job interview in my career until 2020. And that was for something that the CFDA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America, a position that they had open that they wanted me to interview for. And I was given a phone call and requested to interview for that position. But it was interesting because in that I said, wow, I've been doing what I've been doing for over a decade, and I've never been asked to do an interview. And that's mostly because my career the opportunities in my career have come to me based on word of mouth and direct recommendations or just direct relationships. So relationships are so key in this business. And I am humbled and proud to say that I've been able to maintain very healthy relationships in the business, even with some people who we don't necessarily agree to disagree, or we don't see eye to eye sometimes. But when it comes to work, we're able to work well together and to move the needle forward. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I've never been on an interview. I had never been on an interview in the first decade of my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Oh, wow. Actually, someone told me this before, and I want to say he said it would be called The Enigma. And it was a gentleman I went to school with when I went to the Art Institute where I got my degree from in fashion. He was a graphic design student, and he worked in the student store on campus. And his name, I'm trying to remember his name now. I'm looking at him, but he was someone who I didn't really necessarily have a personal relationship, but I would always see him in the student store, and whenever I needed to buy something, he was always at the register. And then one day, I invited him to an event that I was having, and when he posted about the event, he called me an enigma. And when I questioned him about it, I said, "Well, what would make you say that?" And he said, "Just my experience with you since I've met you have been very enigmatic." And he said that I would actually write a book about you called The Enigma. I think that there are qualities and mysteries about you that you don't know are there, and I think it adds to the allure of your presence, and even just when people hear you speak, what it is that they receive, because there's just levels and dimensions to your life, and you share from so many different places. And that really has blessed me, because I had never been described that way before, and it's something that I will never forget. And I think that I would agree with that, because when I look at my life and the way that I would tell my life story in a book, that's a perfect title.
Nice.
Mhm.
Did you have any role models when you were growing up?
Um, Not necessarily. I don't. I mean, there were people who I looked up to, but I don't necessarily say if I won't necessarily say I had a particular role model. But there were just people who had qualities that I admired about them. But if I would say, if there were people that were to occupy the role model space in my life, I would have to say probably my dad, and my mom, both my parents, but in different ways, in very different ways. But I really have a lot of admiration for my parents and the things that they taught me about life and how to show up in life and how to be an individual. I'm an only child, so I spend a lot of time by myself as a kid. But I do have such a very sure sense of self, and I really have to thank my parents for giving me that. And they've been more of an example to me than I realize. More so as I get older, I look back on things that they would say, or I look back on things that I saw with them, and just the things that I was able to learn about them and how they built their life, how they came together, how they met, and the life that they built as a couple. And there's so many lessons and wisdoms that are in their story alone that I can always just draw inspiration from them.
Ah, yes.
Mhm.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
If you had to lose one of your senses, which would you choose?
Ooh, that's tough. That is really tough. If I had to lose one of my senses, which would I choose? Oh, because I love everything about my senses. That's really tough. I guess the one that I could see myself being okay without maybe is the sense of smell. Um, Yeah, maybe the sense of smell would be the safest for me. I think I would be able to manage okay without smelling, but I'm saying that having been one that's never been in that position, but we'll leave that at that for now. The sense of smell. Why would you ask that, if I may ask you?
Well, the thing is, if you eliminate one sense, then all your senses become stronger.
Ah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so even looking at it with that perspective, yeah, smell would be the one I would be okay letting go.
Ah, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. How often do you travel outside of work?
I'm embarrassed to answer that, but I will tell you not often. I travel a lot. Those who know me, or there's people who will listen to this that follow me, can tell you I do travel a lot, but I travel more so for work. And I have a tendency to travel personally, or to plan a personal trip, and then I add a work element in it, so I still never keep it personal. The last personal trip that I took would have been January of this year, and that was the first one that I had taken in about 7 years, from that trip. So I did make a commitment to myself to do better, so I actually just randomly booked a trip to Mexico next month, following New York Fashion Week. I'm just going to go down there shooting down there with a couple friends of mine, just to get away for a couple of days. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that, because I will tell you, I do not do that easily. And I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from. I need to sit with myself with that. But I have a tendency to add work into everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Mm,
there's no harm of having time to yourself
yeah.
outside of work, just to relax and refuel your energy until you get back to work again.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and I need to do it, especially with this season of travel that I have coming up.
That's nice.
Hmm.
What has been the best thing you've bought off Amazon?
I would say, oh, the best thing, I would say my couch.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
uh,
Nice.
off of off of Amazon. Um, yeah, it's the focal point of my apartment. I would say when I look at everything in here, it's the thing that I spent the most money on, and it took me the longest to decide to purchase. My couch and my bed, in my home were the two things that I took the longest time to decide on, and I'm glad that I waited because I got the right thing for me, and it fits well in my space. It goes with who I am. It goes with my decor. It goes with my aesthetic, and it flows. It flows very nicely in here.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Right now, I'm going to say Paris. That Paris is my, let's probably say it's my favorite city in the world out of all the places I've been so far. But I do have plenty more exploring to do. So as of today, I'll say Paris, but that could change.
Okay. Cool. Cool. I do love it. I remember my time in Paris. It was like a couple of years ago. But
Okay.
yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah. It's definitely a magical place for me.
Oh yes, it sure is.
Yeah.
What's the best way to start the morning?
Stillness and silence. I love a quiet morning. I do not like a lot of noise, a lot of talk. As much of a talker as I am, I really don't like to do a lot of talking in the mornings. And I prefer to wake up and just sit in silence and listen to myself think, listen to, my spirit talk to me. I love to meditate that way, to, just start in clarity and tranquility and clear my mind of worries and cares and whatever may come up in a text or whatever may come up in an email, but just to give myself that first, 15 to 30 minutes where it's just sitting with myself. I really love that. And I know that my days flow better when I give myself that time in the morning.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Where would you see yourself 20 years from now?
I would see myself, if not living internationally, at least having established some sort of across the pond engagement that required me to be bi-coastal in terms of international working. I would still like to be working. I know some people want to be retired, but I intend to be working smarter, not harder. I would love to have a more internationally known, established consultancy for creatives in fashion and entertainment. And I would like to have even done maybe a TED Talk by that time, because that's on my bucket list to do a TED Talk.
Oh, cool, cool.
Mhm.
If you had to pick any character in a book, movie, or TV show, who do you think is most similar to you?
Mm. Well, recently, I my friends and even my circle of influence, one thing that I appreciate about them is when they watch things on TV or when they listen to people speak, other speakers or innovators or leaders that remind them of me, they will call and share it with me. And there's a documentary that came out on Netflix called The Black Godfather, and it's about the life and career of Clarence Avant. And I will tell you, I did not know that this man existed before this documentary came out. I had never heard of him before, never heard his name. I can say that I had never seen him before in my life, but everybody, even including my pastor, called me when this documentary came out, and they said, "Elliot, you have to watch this because you remind us so much of this gentleman." And I finally did. It took me about 2 weeks to sit down to watch it, but I finally did. And I will tell you, in terms of the way that I see that I desire for my success to be and the type of influence that I want to have in the lives of people and with their businesses and their careers, Clarence Avant definitely is a model of that for me, in terms of what he's been able to do for so many creatives in the industry, in the entertainment industry rather. I would like to be someone that is known like that. And I've
Okay.
never said that publicly before. This is the first time I'm sharing that. I normally talk about that with my friends, but it's an authentic answer.
Okay, nice, nice.
Mhm.
Would you rather be permanently transported 500 years into the past or 500 years into the future?
Oh, I think I'd go in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So many great technologies in 500 years from now, that's for sure.
Exactly, and definitely wherever I'll be in the future, I need air conditioning. 500 years back, we didn't have that.
Yeah. What superpower do you wish you could have?
I say this all the time. I'm always ready for that question. I wish I could be in more than one place at a time. Oh, if I could duplicate myself, I could get some stuff done.
Yes, that's what I want to. That's how I want to have. I have so many things
Really?
going on. I want to make sure I can do as many things as I can all in one
Yeah.
day.
Yes, that would be so helpful to me. I'm telling you, but unfortunately, I can't. So it enables me to develop more disciplines on my time and planning better. But if that I could do that, I would just be all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
hmm
What is your favorite ice cream topping?
Interestingly, I will tell you, I don't like anything on my ice cream. I'm very plain. I just want it by itself, and I don't really like fancy ice creams either, like uh Rocky Road and all those things mixed together and stuff. I'm a plain vanilla. Give me a plain salted caramel. I don't really care for chocolate. I do like cookies and cream though, but I don't get too exotic with ice cream.
Okay,
hmm
I respect that. I do love. I also love cookie and cream for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you could erase one past experience, what would it be?
Hmm. So oh, we. Um, it's actually funny. So when I was a kid, at some point, my dad, this was around the time before I started playing piano, but my dad made me try out for the city league basketball team, one of the city league basketball teams. Of course, I'm tall and slim, so he was like, "Well, you're not doing anything. We need to try you out in basketball." So I went, I made the team, and we were, well, I don't even know if they reject people on the city league teams, but I was on the team, and, we practiced all season. We did our thing. I didn't really ever get time on the court because I just wasn't good. Let's just put that out there first. I just was not good, not skilled in basketball at all. But went to all of the practices and went to the games. And this one particular game I was put in to play. And at halftime is for those who are basketball fanatics or just know the game, rules and it. I don't know it. I didn't know it as well as I thought I did, even being on the team. But nobody told me that at halftime they switched goals, and so we had come back after halftime, and I ended up getting the ball in my possession and dribbled down the court with no defense, wondering why nobody was after me, blocking me, and I made a goal for the other team, and it was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. It was the only goal I made the entire season, the only time I handled the ball and I shot it for the other team.
Dang. I mean,
Yeah, it was really, really bad.
I mean, it could be worse, to be honest.
It could have been. It could have been. But I think about that often. I'm like, that was so embarrassing. I have a lot of little moments like that, but that's one I bring up all the time.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was after that my dad said, "Yeah, you can just stick with music. Yeah, sports ain't for you."
Uh, well, that's all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Elliot, talking about your work as a fashion and creative consultant,
Thank
and also the Singapore jeweler coming to New York for an exhibition. That's been a
Yes.
great conversation.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I'm really looking forward to that. It was a great time of exchange with them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we could do together to help her build her presence here more.
Yeah, yeah, it should be great.
It should be. Thank you for the time and opportunity. I never take it lightly to be able to share anything about me or my story. I appreciate you and your audience for listening.
You're welcome. And
Yeah.
until next time, stay opinionated.